What is up, my freak bitches? Wherever you may be, however you may be watching, thank you for giving us a little bit of your time. A pretty exciting stream, much like what last week's was. Got a couple of really cool people on here to talk about. And the first one I want to introduce is the Dowager Countess herself, Miss Lady Cora. How are you, ma'am?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Did you like the Downton Abbey reference? Like I threw that in there for you? Cause...
I actually like that, and I think I might try to make something for like a little profile photo with that shit. That's awesome.
Nice. Also on the call is my hetero life mate, Mr. Jeremy Woolner. What's up, brother?
What's going on? I am super excited for this one. This is definitely my area of expertise.
Yeah, this is all right up the alley of you and the other two guys that got on the call. One of them is my good friend, the man himself, with a clean butt, Mr. Casey is Raw.
Hey.
No.
It better be. We waited for this. Damn it, we waited for you to finish.
Well, actually, I wasn't the last guy. I wasn't the only one who's late, so, I mean...
Look, I got here right at 8 o'clock. Do not even start to give me shit.
No, I'm talking about the Rose.
I was like,
me, my house almost burned down. You shut up.
Well, Casey's got a point. Technically speaking, the last person to join the call was the Rose from the Rose Gaming. What is up, my man?
I'm sorry for holding up the show, Frank. Shit happened, man, but everything's cool now. Glad to be here tonight. This is going to be a hell of a show.
I think house fires
Okay.
qualify as a decent
Casey's
reason to delay
ass
things.
thanked you, so we had time to get out of the bath.
Yeah, no doubt. But listen, the Rose has his own channel, the Rose Gaming. I will put the link to that in the description as soon as I remember to do so. I just put in my generic description there for now. But I will put the link to both the Rose and to Casey as Raw's channels in the description below. And the reason why I called these guys and said, hey, I got to get you guys on the stream so we can talk about this. Video game movies. You guys are seeing the display behind me right now. We've got Mia Jovovich. We've got Alicia Vikander. We've got my favorite hitman, Timothy Olyphant. We've got the Mario Brothers movie in the background, the one from 1927, the one that was made forever ago, and a little bit of the guy from
1993,
and a little bit of the guy.
yeah,
from,
like it's as
from
old as
Warcraft.
me. What are you trying to say?
Yeah.
The fuck? Actually, I'm older than that movie.
You are older than
Fuck
actually.
you, sir.
No, the Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, you said 93, right? I was born in 92, man.
No, the Mario
look it
Brothers
up, that
movie
was
was
from
from the
93.
80s. The Mario Brothers movie, really?
Oh, it was from the 90s.
No, this is
Oh, wow.
in the 90s.
Yeah.
I feel like that
Yeah,
movie
I
came out in
was
the
like
80s.
5 years old.
93.
I was like 5
That-
years old
that-
when that movie came
That
out.
is like my one weird thing that I can do. Like, you could ask me any movie, and I could damn near every time tell you exactly what year it came out.
I really
I
feel
don't know
like
why
that.
it's my thing.
I really feel like that movie came out in the 80s. I don't know why. Maybe it's because
I was like 5 years old when that movie came out.
maybe it's because John Leguizamo looks like he's 7 years old, and Bob Hoskins is
Right.
alive, that kind of thing.
Ah.
But that is the topic of today's stream is video game movies, and I've got a whole bunch of video game nerds on the call to try to answer some of these deep and involved questions. And the one question that stands out amongst all the others is, why do video game movies fail so badly? Rose, let's go to you. You are one of the 3 video game experts on the call. What is it about video game movies that just makes them not translate well from the console or the PC or whatever your platform is to the big screen?
Well, I think one of the major reasons is they get shoved off onto writers and directors who don't understand the material all that well, which was one of the reasons the Super Mario Brothers movie was so terrible, because they didn't understand the source material as well as a lot of other people maybe were capable of doing that. And it's not just that, but Hollywood, they also like to take creative liberties on the IP that the movie's about, which could go either way. It could either be good or it could be bad, and like literally 95% of the time it's been bad.
Oh, yeah.
Casey, do you think it's more about, what do you think about what the Rose just said? Is it that maybe that some of the guys that are making these films just aren't passionate enough about the IPs to really want to make them a good movie, that it really is just a money grab?
I don't think they don't care. It's not that they don't care. I think it's... Well, look at Super Mario Brothers. the original one.
I don't want to.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about that movie in depth later on with one of the other questions we have.
There's not really much you can really make a movie out of that game. I mean, you're just running through a platformer game just to get to the end. I mean, there's really not much you could make out of a movie. I mean, the later ones, maybe, like with the Mario Odyssey.
Sunshine.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
Are you saying, Casey, that there are types of games that do better for movies?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Could there be a Fortnite?
Yeah. Well, what could you still do with that? There's not a whole lot to... I mean, you build... Well, they already have a Battle Royale movie, which is kind of what this whole... I'm going to call it a plague on gaming, is what it did. Like, the concept is, based off a movie. So technically speaking, there are, things of that nature. But it is not too much to that concept you can really make something out of. I'm not saying you can't, because I've only said recently, video game movies have been doing well, or something I could enjoy watching.
I'll agree to that.
I think they've been getting better, but I think the reason they've gotten better is because of the selection of the games that they've tried to make into movies. Because, I mean, let's face it, a lot of it is what do you decide to try to extend from the console or from the gaming platform to the big screen. I mean, for example, they've tried it with multiple different games, some of them with really rich stories, some of them with not so rich stories. I mean, you take a movie like, we'll take Resident Evil, for example, and we'll talk about this, probably several times as we go through this stream. But I mean, if you are someone who played all those games, you know that there's a rich story to draw off of. And you don't have to do a strict interpretation of everything that happened in the game, but you can still take the most important elements that are at the core of the story and build a good film, even a film series around them. And but then again, on the flip side, you have movies made out of games like Angry Birds, which it's like, what do you really do with that? I mean, yeah, you kind of have this blank canvas that you can do this stuff with, but you don't really have a core story to build anything around. So you have to make something up that can sometimes be kind of ridiculous. And so I think a part of it is they're going after not what has got a rich story that you can build around, but just what's popular at the moment that doesn't really lend itself to a screen bigger than your phone or your PC or your TV. I mean, what do you think of that, Cora? I mean, is this something... I know, Cora, you're probably a reader a lot like I used to be. So, I mean, you see... And this happens a lot from books to movies, is things kind of get lost in translation and stuff. So, is a lot of the same thing?
Well, maybe so, but what I would say is maybe indirectly answering, I don't play a lot of video games, but I like to watch people play video games. And so when there's a movie that comes out and they say it's based on a video game, if I watch the movie and I fucking love it, like, for example, Tomb Raider or my husband Dan's, one of his favorite called Wing Commander.
Yeah, I remember that movie, yeah.
There's a story to it, and I didn't play the video game, but it could stand alone as a movie on its own. That, to me, is a measure of something that can succeed across all the different demographics, because whether you play it or not, you can enjoy it. I don't want to watch a movie if I didn't play the video game to the point where I have to play the video game to understand the movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise you'd feel kind of lost. Like, you're like, what is this big nemesis motherfucker? What is that about? And if you're sitting there watching, you're like, oh, I know what that is.
I got a good... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
no, I was gonna. Good, yeah, good.
I was gonna say is that do you think there's possibility, because now some of the people who's doing these movies were video game players back in the 80s and 90s or even the 2000s are able to start producing movies?
I think that's valid.
Back in you know what I mean? Unlike back in the 90s where early 90s with Mario Brothers, I mean, not a lot of people play video games at kids, And
it wasn't just Mario Brothers, it was Street Fighter 2. That movie was fucking awful.
And Mortal Kombat.
I have to say, my husband liked the Street
The second
Fighter
one,
movie.
not so much.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
He said. Something can't.
Yeah, Yeah, and also I guess you're right. Video games, like, yeah, you're kind of you're a nerd and you're a loser if you play video games. But it's kind of funny how that whole concept just kind of flipped. Also, like being like a comic book, exactly. So like now it's the world is like run by that shit, and it's something popular, and I'm sitting here like, yeah, but I've liked that shit since I got beat up for it. So
yeah, I think
funny how the times have changed.
Yeah, Casey made a great point. It's like it's gotten to the point where these guys that are in their 30s and 40s now that are getting their first shots to direct some of these bigger budget movies, they do want to go back to their childhood because they're the ones that grew up playing things like Tomb Raider back in around the 2000s, things like that. So now these guys are into their movie making careers and they want to try to tap these rich stories, whereas back in the throughout the 90s up to about 2000 or so, it really was just a money grab. It was like, oh, wait a minute, this project right here, this game right here is huge. Let's make a movie out of it and see if we can make $200 million. And then they didn't really...
Exactly.
And one of the things they didn't do, and I've read a couple articles about this, is they did not get the developers involved enough with the production. So what they did was they basically just went and grabbed their teenage kids and were like, "Hey, what do you like about this game, about World of Warcraft or about Tomb Raider? I like that. I like that the characters got big pointy boobs." And they're like, "Okay, we're gonna hit Angelina Jolie because she's a huge star. We're gonna pad her bra. She's gonna have those big pointy boobs, and we're gonna basically send her through we're basically just gonna make her the female Indiana Jones, and we're just gonna kind of just throw it out there, and it's gonna make money." And sure, it made money, but the quality of it, especially over time, doesn't stick. It doesn't stick at all.
I liked it. I'm not gonna lie.
I can't
the music
even.
was good. The cinematography was good. The lighting was good.
It was all right.
I
guess for its time.
Make a movie on Drew. Would be
And it's star power, I guess, like because it's Angelina Jolie.
Well, what did you think of the new one that was?
Now, see, that one that's what I was going to start saying. I think this is where the foothold has come in, where I'm like, okay, Assassin's Creed and then like this new Tomb Raider, I think is where we started actually finally getting good, watchable video game movies. And actually, fun fact though, if they're still married, her and Michael Fassbender are married. So it's kind of cute. They were both like in video game movies like a year apart. But I don't know. I liked it because it kind of stayed true to like the reboot of the games. Well, I can't say reboot because there's been so many of those games, but like the ones that kind of did a little grittier, getting her ass kicked like at every corner, Tomb Raider, it kind of kept to it. Now, like I'm looking at Mila Jovovich over here, I'm like, now that was something made up, and it's like, did that just not work? And like this movie stuck to like what the game was for Tomb Raider. Is that why? Because you got this god tier character of Alice, who it's like, well, what's the point? And it's entertaining, but I'm just like, yeah, okay, I saw Nemesis for like 10 minutes. And it was jumpy and it was cut really weird, and that was the end of that.
Before you go too much more into this, Randy Viper just donated and said they should make a movie on Drew. It would be more entertaining. And he says, "What's up to everybody, including his favorite racist Casey, Casey is Raw, and he hopes we're all having a good day." What's up, Randy Viper?
I have a question. You ready?
Go ahead, Cora.
So, you guys know more about this than I do. Have there ever been any video games created based off a movie, the reverse? I'm very curious if
There's been a lot, actually.
Oh, yeah. That goes back to the beginning of video games.
Oh.
It's everything from Predator.
Let me tell you, 90% of them suck.
Oh yeah, they made an amazing documentary about one game specifically back in the '80s, and I know that all the other gamers on
Donkey Kong. You talking about Donkey Kong?
No, E.T.
Oh, E.T. Right.
They made an entire like hour and a half.
The landfill.
They no doubt. I mean, people like there are archaeologists that go to this place and look for like old busted up cartridges from this game and the packaging and all that. And the game was so terrible. I mean, it was so bad that it almost sank Atari.
I mean, they only had 5
weeks
to make the game.
New Mexico or some shit.
Yeah, but
yeah. They on an Atari. It's little blocks. Like, what were you gonna do?
And it was basically like, it was basically like every other game that was ever made. Yeah, it was basically like every other game that was ever made. It was this little square character going around and collecting dots. It's like, it was the Atari 2600. It was the 8-bit age. There was only so much you could do with video games anyway. But you know, it's
Bandan is saying that Neverending Story was one of those where they made a video game based on a movie.
Oh, there's Star Wars. I mean, everything. I mean, I would imagine
Ghostbusters.
that
Indiana Jones.
yes, everything has had something named, has had a game made after
That's
it
true.
from the
I
80s
guess
on.
I just, maybe more specifically, that truly succeeded, they could compare with originally created video games that, you know, that could stand up to, like, you know, some of these, you know what I'm getting at, like, that actually succeeded beyond just being, you know, digital merchandise based from a movie.
And you know, and many of them actually did fairly well and were liked by gamers all the way from the, you know, all the way from the Nintendo days, the original NES days, all the way up through today. There's a guy that I watch called Minty Comedic Arts on YouTube, does one of those 10 things you didn't know about this movie, and in most of his movies he mentions the video game tie-in and whether the video game did well, whether it was liked or not, and of course he did a small segment on the whole ET thing, but. Yeah, I mean it's mostly marketing, but every now and again you get one that really takes off, like the James Bond game that was on Nintendo 64. That is considered
GoldenEye.
That's considered to be one of the best shooter games in history. And
Yes.
you look back at it now, and yeah, the graphics don't really hold up, but I mean the
What
gameplay
console
mechanics.
was it on?
Nintendo 64, I believe.
64, yeah.
And the graphics don't hold up very well at all, but I mean that was kind of to be expected. But the game mechanics and just the general storyline of the shooter works out really well, and a lot of people refer to that game as the game that got them into shooters in the first place. Before Call of Duty, before SOCOM, before all this other stuff, it was that game that got them.
Rainbow Six.
Yeah, before Rainbow Six, that was the game that really led to the revolution of the first-person shooter games. So I mean, yeah, some of them have been actually very well loved and very well received. But
and because you could also ruin your friendship with all your other friends because you could, you know, split screen and you could scream at each other. That was the whole point.
Yeah.
If you use Odd Job one more fucking time, man, you know.
Don't look over at my side of the screen. To this day, I hate playing split screen. I hate it.
Right.
Well, actually, before all that, I mean, you still had Wolfenstein 3D and Doom for the PC.
Doom for the PC was one of my husband's favorites.
And it was a bad movie.
It was a bad movie.
Yeah, even The Rock couldn't save that movie.
But again, it was one of those. It was one of those things where, you know, we have this tremendously popular IP. Let's go ahead and attach this at the time he was an up and coming star. Let's go and attach this guy, The Rock, and Carl Urban, and some of these guys that are big enough names, and see if we can make a mountain of money off it. And then they're like, well, it's great to have these very buff, good-looking guys on there, but the movie sucks. So it's like you're going to have the big opening weekend, and then as soon as word of mouth gets out, everybody realizes that this movie is pure trash, and you're not going to be able to sell it. You're going to go from making $20 million your opening weekend to making $7 million the next, and then the law of diminishing returns says that you're going to be out of theaters in a month, and you're not going to make any money at all.
So you don't think The Rock would put that one at the top of his resume then?
I think if you ask The Rock right now what his top 50 movies were, that he would not put that in anywhere in the top 50.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't.
Or you know, you can do what Capcom. You can do what Capcom did. You can take a good video game, make a terrible movie out of it, then make a terrible video game of the terrible movie of a very good video game.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the whole marketing thing, though, is the marketing kind of comes full circle, and that you want to try to make the money off of the thing you couldn't make money off of. But, you know, one of the things that I was reading about on this is that sometimes they take games with good stories that don't need to be films, that already play kind of like very cinematically, and they try to make movies out of those things. I was reading an article by, let's see, it was from Forbes.com, and I forgot the name of the guy who wrote it, but he said that everyone has a long list of their favorite stories in games, and it might include the likes of The Last of Us, Mass Effect, or Uncharted, and so on, but then you run into different problems with these games. They're so similar to movies already, just one's interspersed with interactive sequences, that adapting them to movies seems almost unnecessary and like it would actually make the stories worse. For example, we got to know Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us through excellent performance capture work, but seeing them recast as different actors going through roughly the same story on the small screen doesn't really seem like a net benefit, not like adapting, say, a book or a comic book. So, I mean, what do you guys think to that? That some of these are actually really just really good on their own, and you don't really get anything out of seeing them fleshed out on the big screen by actors.
Oh, I mean, that's a good point.
I mean,
you know, it would be an awesome movie, but there's so much cinematic is the recent God of War movie. I mean, there's a lot of cinematic. But
That
did
movie
a
actually
lot-
came out. I didn't know that one actually came out.
Oh, I'm talking on the PS4 version.
Oh, yeah, the game. I thought you were talking about the movie.
I was like, wait, when did this happen?
I was gonna say I heard there was gonna be a movie, but I didn't know it actually came to fruition.
No, I was gonna say it should be made a movie, but I mean, that has a lot of cinematic things in it that, I mean,
What about
It's
TV
almost-
shows or miniseries? When I
I'd
was
say,
on
like,
the
The Wit-
Wikipedia page about this, there was a whole section of video game to small screen TV stuff. I didn't look at the whole list or anything, but I mean,
Sonic the
It's like-
Hedgehog. They made cartoons.
I mean,
there's
is
The
that
Wit-
better
Super
now
Mario
The
than
Witcher.
had a
some
few
of this
cartoons.
Yeah, The
Because,
Witcher.
You know,
The Witcher had
video
the
games
Witcher
might have so
series,
much
yeah.
content that if they do a TV series, they can kind of explore it more rather than a 2-hour movie.
Mortal Kombat actually tried that too, and it's just a shame that that one got canceled because of the terrible time slot it got.
I think
And-
actually,
and
quite
maybe-
frankly, honestly, I think the movie's a better shot than a series. Think about it. You have to think of something every episode about, like, oh, what happened here, or what's the premise of the episode this time. While the movie,
Oh.
at least, while the movie kind of have one plot. I mean, you don't have to worry about making sequels or trilogies automatically, you know?
But there's this trend now of doing these mini seasons or quote unquote limited series, like HBO's been doing it. You know, like
Netflix
do
has
a
been doing it too.
you
Yeah.
do a 6-episode, 6-hour long thing, and that's it, based on a video game. That would be kind of cool, I think, for some of these games. I don't know, just a thought instead of a movie.
I
Well,
think
if you
that's a
got
lot
enough
better,
material, if you got like enough material in a game, which is like The Witcher, it's like it's not necessarily that it's. I mean, it's still Geralt, but I'm like it could be something with an open game like that. It could be any sort of adventure they can think up that's within that world. Which is, I mean, in Assassin's Creed was a movie, but I'm like it was its own thing, still within the realm of like what we know of with all these different assassins in these different time periods. So maybe that's a way you can do it. If it's something that's got a lot of material to it.
Well, because
you
I've been
can
watching my
venture
brother
off.
play Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I could see them doing a 6-part miniseries off of that. There's a lot of plot, like what do they call that in the video game, where it's like just the stuff they show you before you play a scene.
cutscenes.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of stuff there.
Yeah.
Does it seem to
But
you
even I guess the game.
Go ahead, Jeremy. Go ahead.
Well, no, it's kind of ironic that I saw something right before, like yesterday, I think, before we started doing this. I went to a very reliable source of TikTok. This guy was talking about he was talking about movies that video games that should be movies, and it's like even one that he said the campaign of like GTA 5, like the story of like what the three guys were doing, that could be one. Or like I think someone said Halo earlier, and like God of War was one. Maybe one of the Black Ops games, like the story modes. Because I mean, I know we all play it for multiplayer, but something like that. And like one of them was The Last of Us. Even though I don't know if I want to see The Last of Us 2, because that's a whole other. That was a whole other thing.
Yeah. A couple of things. One thing I want to do real quick is I want to make a shout out to a couple of new people in the chat I haven't seen. I got Rachel Ruland and Leroy X. I hope you guys like what you see from all of us, and you want to consider subscribing and coming back for some more. But one of the things that I want to ask is, why does it seem like movies that are based on video game culture seem to do so much better than movies that are based on video game stories?
I think part of that reason is because with the video game story, you kind of have to stick to that story, whereas the culture aspect of it, you can kind of like make your own stories, and you don't really have to follow like a set theme.
Well, that does
And
go
you can
back to
do
what
it.
that goes back to what we were saying earlier about how some of these stories aren't good for for movie purposes or even really TV show purposes. But when you're allowed a little bit more of that open world to play with, it seems to go a lot better for you.
Right, because I mean, like movies like Ready Player One, I think were pretty good.
Oh,
Yeah,
And,
I like that.
Hey,
There
Ready
was-
Player One is one of my husband's favorite movies, and
that is my all-time, now finally top. That's my favorite fucking movie.
the
I can
music
watch it,
in
like,
it was
4
fucking
times a day.
fantastic.
I
They
know.
had
I'm like,
that,
if anyone ever wants to know what the inside of my brain looks like most of the time, it's that. So many references to fucking everything. That's what it's like.
Exactly.
For those of you watching the stream right now, there's a graphic up there about movies that are made about some gaming culture, and there are a lot of them that a lot of people know already. I mean, you've got Tron that came out in 1982, also got their box office numbers next to them. War Games, which was, well, the character was a video game nut, not necessarily about video games. The Last Starfighter is one of my personal favorite movies. We actually did a retro movie review of that. Aaron and I did a few months ago. You guys can go check that out on the channel. The Lawnmower Man was kind of this weird movie about some guy with autism. He got lost in the video game world back in the 90s. Grandma's Boy, kind of an independent thing, but absolutely hilarious. It's kind of based around... Yeah, Jeremy
that
knows.
movie.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I love that movie.
And, of course, the biggest one by far is Ready Player One. I mean, none of these made... Let's see, War Games made $80 million back in 1993, which is good money for back then. But, of course, Ready Player One makes $583 million and kind of dwarfs the rest of it. Now, let's go look at some of the top grossing comic book films of all time. You know, you definitely know these names. I mean, the top grossing film of all time is Warcraft at $439 million. And it's interesting to me because as I look down this list, and again, if you guys are on the watching the stream, you can see the list of the top 10 right now. These are not names that aren't known. You would think that if you were somebody who played these games, there was definitely a big enough following that if they made a semi-decent movie, it would make a ton of money. But you're looking at Warcraft, which made $439 million, which, if I made one movie that made $439 million, I'd be happy as shit, don't get me wrong. But this is one of those movies they expected to make $1 billion. And then you have Detective, then you have Detective Pikachu, which
That was a good movie.
It was. I think it was more of a kids movie. It's based on it was one of those things kind of like Angry Birds. It's based on this goofy character but doesn't really have its own general story other than whatever you do with the Pokemons. But I mean, whatever, it worked. Then you've got Rampage. Trust me, about 400 of that 428 million came from The Rock's face being in it. There's no other way to explain that movie making that much money. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time was just not a good movie. I remember going to see that movie when it first came out, and it
The
was
movie,
horrible.
but I don't know anything about the video game.
I played the video game a little bit. I didn't play it a lot. I wasn't particularly fond of the game. Sonic the Hedgehog, I have no idea how that movie made $320 million. That movie was hated on almost.
I don't either.
I think because everybody wanted to go see it because they've been fans of the game for years.
I think a lot of people were also
with
curious.
That movie, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is a movie you have to shut your brain off and watch, because if you're going to watch it expecting it to be like the games and Sonic's going to be based off of his video game persona, because he clearly wasn't, you're going to be very disappointed. I went to that movie. I liked it for what it was. I'm looking forward to the second one just to see what they do better than the first one. Besides having to go back to the drawing board with character designs, because I think a lot of people actually really liked Sonic's redesign after that monstrosity that they came up with the first time.
That's what I think drove a lot of the box office.
it.
Yeah, that's what I think drove a lot of the box office of that movie, though, was kind of the general curiosity of what it was going to look like. So how much that $321 million was just people who were wondering what it was going to look
Didn't
like.
it come right when COVID was starting? So people needed something to be happy about.
What's that?
Sonic come out right about when COVID was.
I'm gonna say,
It
was.
Yeah,
Valentine's Day, actually.
So people might have gone to see it just to take their mind off shit.
that's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
the bottom line is I don't think a lot of
It
people were running to
actually
see the
came-
movie itself.
It actually came out before
Running.
It actually came
Running
out
to the movie.
a month
Sorry.
before the U.S. Shutdowns actually started happening because of the virus. So it actually came out at a good time. Otherwise, it would have done worse.
No, actually, I think probably do okay because, I mean, I think video on demand is good.
There's generally some love for the Sonic movie in the chat. I mean, I have to acknowledge
movie.
it. I mean, I still
Yeah.
haven't seen it. I was never really that into it, but I mean, Leroy X said Sonic was great. TSS
Jim
says,
Carrey was amazing in that movie.
yeah, we all know TSS.
I was so worried about that, and I'm like, you know what? No, he knocked it out of the park, and then you see Eggman at the end. I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah,
All right.
we all know TSS in the community. He liked it and said it was pretty good. I've seen a couple people there say it wasn't bad. So I mean, whatever. I'll take your guys' word for it. And Jim Carrey, I mean, it's one of those characters that it's always come naturally to him. So I'm not surprised that he was good at it.
Oh yeah.
But
Hey Frank, at the end of the stream, I was thinking of doing like a little lightning round of a couple of movies. I have like 5 or 6 video game movies that I could speak of on like maybe 2 minutes each one.
do little quick reviews. I'm with that. Little quick reviews
Yeah.
of the movies. That's fine. But rounding out this list, numbers 6 and 7 are Resident Evil movies. And Resident Evil: The Final Chapter, then Resident Evil Afterlife, right behind it, both making about $300 million. The Resident Evil ones are, I think they're fairly good. But again, they changed so much stuff around because they just didn't seem to want to keep with the core of what made that game popular. Because the Alice character, she doesn't really exist in the video games, does she?
No.
So
Yeah.
why not? So why not go to Claire Redfield and make a character out of her? Why not do this? Why make this genetically enhanced, virus enhanced super soldier and stray so far away from the core of what made that game so popular?
Yeah, I mean, you even had like people that you do play as, like Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine, and I'm like, okay, but they don't really have as big of a part in the movies as I was kind of expecting. And like I said, even with like Nemesis, and I was like, oh shit, that's gonna be cool. Oh no, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, 3 minutes. 3 minutes of the title character. Yeah.
Yeah, with like a lot of super quick jump cuts of like, was that a fight? Is that a leg? That's a punch. That's all right, that was fun. I'm glad we worked up to that boss fight. What the fuck was that?
And then
Wesker was in it.
Yeah, and
So
then
that was fun.
number 8 was Tomb Raider with pointy boobed Angelina Jolie. That came out in 2001, and then immediately after.
Can that just be her title?
Sure. And then immediately after that,
I remember being in 6th grade when that movie came out. Like all the freaking, all the boys
yes.
were like horny as fuck for Angelina Jolie in that movie.
You were horny as fuck for triangle boobs. Come on, don't even lie to me.
Exactly.
Don't lie to me.
She's one of the few actresses that purposely had her tits in real life.
did she? Oh yeah, she did. She had them taken off
For
because
breast
she was
cancer,
afraid
but-
of breast cancer. Yeah, well, whatever. It's kind of ironic, isn't it, if you think about it?
Irony.
But and what's up, Gorilla? I see you in the chat, pal. Honestly, and oddly enough, right behind that was the remake that came out with Alicia Vikander just 2 years ago that made an almost identical box office, $274 million. I honestly, I still haven't seen that one with Alicia Vikander. I can't attest to whether it's any
I
good or not.
recommend it. I recommend it.
I
I'll
saw
give
it
you.
was good.
I recommend it. Come on, man. Nick Frost is in the movie. You gonna turn him down?
I can't really turn down Nick Frost.
All right. If that's your little incentive to do so.
But one of the things that I wonder about is what movies that are coming up soon based on video games are you guys really looking forward to? Because there's a list of them now up on the screen for those of you watching the stream.
I could actually name like 4 of them right off the bat.
Well,
say
they're
Monster
probably
Hunter.
on here. They're probably on here.
Uncharted, definitely.
Oh,
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Tom
Sonic
Holland.
the Hedgehog 2, Mortal Kombat, the reboot movie, which will be based on the
Nice.
reboot series, which was actually supposed to premiere March 25th next year until the virus happened. So we don't know when that's coming out anymore. And there was supposed to be a movie made by the team that did the Minions movies for Super Mario. I was kind of looking
that's
forward to that
right.
too. I haven't heard really any news on that one though in quite a while.
Probably since COVID. I mean, that probably canceled that shit right there. I mean, I hadn't heard that since COVID started.
I heard about it last year, probably around this same time, and then COVID started a few months later, and then a whole bunch of shit just went to hell this year, as we know of. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's the video game movies I'm looking forward to next year, and whether we get them or not. We know the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, Sonic 2, is not going to be ready until 2022, actually. And there is going to be another Detective Pikachu movie, which I'll talk a little bit more on the first one towards the end of the stream. But that one, we don't know if that's going to be next year or 2022. But I'm definitely looking forward to Uncharted, the Mortal Kombat reboot movie. Stuff like that interests me. So I can't wait to see how those turn out.
Technically, Five Nights at Freddy's, there was a movie called The Banana Splits Gang, which is like literally 98% like Five Nights at Freddy's. But I just talked to my friend about it before I came here. He's like, that's not really that. I'm like, but it really kind of is, though. He's like, but it's not. Like, but it kind of is. It's literally they're animatronic, like, and it seems all happy and childlike, and then it's like, oh no, they're actually like murdering people and shit. In a like theme park. It's literally Five Nights at Freddy's without being Five Nights at Freddy's. So I'm like, technically we kind of already have that. So I'm like, what would the incentive be to make that when everyone's just going to be like, that's literally the same movie,
But one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I put that on the list was because movie producer Roy Lee, who did the movies The Departed and the Lego Movie, is actually working on a Minecraft movie and a Five Nights at Freddy movie. While one of the other guys that are quoted in this article that I had used for some research is working on a Just Cause movie.
See,
My question is, for the Just Dance shit, what kind of a movie is that going to be?
But that's my question.
I hope it's like
though.
Magic Mike.
That's the question, though. Is how do you take it's like Minecraft? How do you turn Minecraft into a movie?
Unless
I just don't get it.
Make a cartoon version of it and put characters in it as if they're in the Minecraft world.
Well, there is a Minecraft story mode now, so maybe there's something they could draw from that. It's not just like the open world crafting anymore. Maybe that's what that could be from. And like you said, I would animate it, because how else would you? Yeah, it would be kind of weird. You just see people trying to like.
Invaders could be really fucking cool if they really put some effort into it. That could be cool.
They actually had a Space Invaders segment, or was that actually no? That might have been a Centipede segment in that movie Pixels. That also had to do with a lot of video game culture. That movie I thought was pretty decent too.
It was alright.
Do you collect the video game movies and the video games, or just the games?
The way they handled Centipede in the Pixels movie, I think if they do something along the lines with Space Invaders, I think that could be really interesting.
I have like an aversion to Adam Sandler, so that's why I didn't watch it. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. That's my thing.
I do have one movie that I'm gonna wait to drop on you and see what you guys think.
Ooh, a mystery.
One that's not up there, but I mean, I guess if we're going to do this next, what we want to see, a Dead Space movie would be fucking phenomenal. That'd be a great horror movie.
The one I'm interested most in seeing is Metal Gear Solid, because it just came out about a week ago that the guy that played Poe Dameron in Star Wars is going to be playing in that movie, playing the lead in that movie. Yeah, he's gonna be playing Snake, so that's gonna be pretty cool. I mean, Borderlands.
Hideo Kojima's not gonna have anything to do with that, though, right?
I don't know. I haven't really had a chance to look too much into it. I kind of read it in passing.
I heard he wants to use Kojima Productions to make more than just video games. Like, he wants to do movies too. But I don't know, because Konami kicked him to the curb. I don't know if he'd be able to do anything with the Metal Gear IP anymore.
It is his property, though, right? Like,
No, it's Konami.
Yeah, Konami.
Is it still theirs?
Yeah, they still own it.
Damn.
Well,
he went to Sony and said to hell with them. He's still doing well. You lost something great. You played yourselves.
But let's go to Casey. We'll start with Casey. Casey, what do you think has been the best video game based movie so far? And don't go by what critics say or whatever. Just what's your favorite?
You know what? I'm gonna drop the mystery one now.
Okay.
It's my favorite. My favorite one is the Nintendo's commercial movie. It's known as The Wizard.
Oh yeah, The Wizard. Yep. I've seen that movie when I was younger, but I don't remember too much of it now. Like, I'd have to go back and watch it. But yeah, I thought it was all right. I mean, it was very heavily product placement for sure.
Well,
Kind of
yeah,
weighed
I
that
mean-
Well,
movie
that's
down.
exactly what that movie was supposed to be. I've actually watched a little bit. There's actually there's a documentary I watched on Amazon Prime, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago about the Power Glove. And that's what they said, that they eventually, what they did was they agreed, Nintendo that is, agreed to whatever they needed to do to be in that movie, because they essentially wanted it to be a commercial for the Power Glove. That's what they wanted.
Oh, no, not only that, they officially announced Mario 3 on that movie.
Yeah, that's,
I actually
yeah,
really
Nintendo
like
got
how
huge
they
marketing out of
showed
this.
off that movie.
Yeah.
So
I mean, isn't that kind of what The Witcher did too? It's like there was kind of like a resurgence of playing that game because everyone saw the series, and if they hadn't maybe played it, they were like, "Oh, what's this about? This is kind of cool. I like the show." You know, it kind of works in that sense.
And ironically enough, it's become kind of this cult favorite amongst gamers. I mean, it got horrible ratings. I mean, let's see. The Wizard it's actually one of the lowest rated video game movies on Rotten Tomato. It's got a 32-60 split. So 32% of the critics didn't like it, but 67% of the fans of the average everyday people like it, which I think that's way more important. But, that's just me.
Yeah. I loved it back in the day, and I still think it's a good movie. I mean, it's nostalgic to me.
Gorilla sent me a picture of, I guess this is Martin Ford. He is a very large individual that he says should be cast as God of War. I'll grab this picture real quick so I can put it up and show you guys. It's he's a large individual. He's sitting next to what I assume is a regularly built man, and he is making this guy look small.
Is it like the Andre the Giant thing where he's holding like the can of pop or some shit? It's like super small.
No, not like that. But still, I wouldn't want this guy to throw a punch at me. Is all I'm saying.
That's fair.
So, but he is not a small individual. Let me see if I can put this up real quick. But Rose, what about you? What is your favorite video game based film?
My favorite one of all time is actually the Mortal Kombat movies from the 90s. For what it was, the first one is definitely better than the second one. For a PG-13 movie, I think they did, at least the first go-around, they did Mortal Kombat pretty well, I think. The second one, not as good, and I'll get into that in my little lightning round. But to me, the second one is a guilty pleasure movie, the movie that I'll go back to and watch, just because it definitely did not hold up as well as the first one.
Oh, no.
In today's time, but I still go back and watch it knowing how cheesy it is now and stuff like that. But Mortal Kombat is definitely my favorite movie. I think, especially as, when I was younger, out of all the video game movies back in those times and from like when I was a teenager and younger, I think Mortal Kombat was done the best, in my opinion. And that's another reason why I'm really looking forward to the reboot, the reboot movie. I want to see how well that they take the rebooted story and translate that onto the big screen.
See, I agree with the Rose. I mean, Mortal Kombat could have been one of the best video game movies that was ever been
I mean,
made.
just the way they animated Goro alone with that big freaking animatronic they had to make, and there was one person actually steering him, and Goro, for people who don't know about Mortal Kombat too much, there's a character in the movie and in the games called Goro, and he's got 4 arms instead of 2. Now, obviously, you can't cast anybody, to play a character that's got 4 arms, because ain't nobody alive that has 4 arms. So they had to make an animatronic with the extra 2 arms, and they had one person steering the human half of the animatronic, and they had the rest of it like animated with like I forgot exactly how they did it, but there was like piano wire and stuff involved. And for the games, they did it all stop motion, which I thought was pretty cool, and I'm sure very time consuming.
I think it's possible to have 4 arms. I mean, shoot, there's some people with 2 heads, so there could be someone with 4 arms.
And there's Casey.
If you find somebody, Casey, that's got 4 arms, you let me know.
They're about to get the role of a lifetime. Step up.
All right, Cora, let's go to you. What's your favorite video game movie that's ever come out?
I got a weird one you guys haven't mentioned because I went through some lists. I didn't know it was a video game, but the movie called In the Name of the King with Jason Statham. I didn't know that was based on a video game until I just read this list, but I really liked that movie.
I didn't realize it either, to be honest.
Evidently,
it
it
called?
was In the Name of the King, a dungeon siege tale. It came out in 2007.
Oh.
I like Jason Statham movies, and so I watched all of his, and evidently, they're saying it was based on it. But other than that, I would say the Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie, because I didn't know those were a video game until I saw the movie, and then people talked about it, and I just really liked the action, and I liked the cinematography of it all, and the Indiana Jones, like you were mentioning, Frank-esque to it. So I would say, first of all, the Indiana Jones movies, but I really like the In the Name of the King one.
Jeremy, how about you, man?
I honestly think my favorite video game movie, I think it's, like I said, the first time I was ever turned around to this whole, like, I was watching this movie like, yeah, I think we're getting somewhere with this, was the Assassin's Creed movie. And it's because it's a series that I absolutely love playing. I think it was done well, like the choreography of the fights and like the way it was shot, and it felt I kind of did the little turn my brain off thing, and I just sat back and enjoyed it, and I was just like, whoa, like everything was just like, oh, holy shit, whoa, like it was so cool. And in fact that like they had a stuntman do the leap of faith where the eagle dive. They had like an actual guy, like a stunt guy, give that man a raise, do that dive, and then they CG'd the background, of course. But like he actually dove like 80 some fucking feet down into a big balloon or whatever. But I don't know, it's just kind of one of my favorite series. I always thought it was really badass. They're all around their little hoods and they're assassinating people left and right, and the whole kind of like twist on history aspect of it, which was always interesting to me.
TSS just dropped a little bit of breaking news in the chat for all you gamer lovers out there, and I assume you guys all like games if you're listening to us talk about this stuff. Sony has removed Cyberpunk 2077 from their digital store and will offer refunds to anyone who bought a copy of the game. Has anybody out there played it?
Because the game is such a fucking mess. The game is a busted fucking mess right now. I don't even know how that game has UA testing.
They removed the game. They removed it from you purchasing it?
You can't buy it on the PlayStation Store, is what they're telling you.
So it's probably like PT. It's like if you have it, you've got it, but don't get rid of it because now you can't get it back if you do.
Yeah.
Well, they'll put it back on their store. It's just that a lot of people right now are...
See, they should have made a movie out of PT. That thing was awesome back.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I'm still upset about it. I'm definitely still upset about it. Like, oh, that was another one. There was two other horror things that guy said should be a movie. Dead by Daylight would kind of make a cool little slasher movie, and then Until Dawn would be like a little horror thriller kind of deal.
Frank, did you answer the question? Which was your favorite? I know your wife did in the chat.
I was waiting for you guys to finish your thing, but my favorite.
Tell us.
And it's kind of two-pronged because I really do like the movie. I played a little bit of the game, like the first version of the game when I was still before I had kids and I actually had time for that kind of thing. But it's because I like the movie, I like the game, and I like the guy who played him was Hitman. I'm a typical Oliphant fan. I mean, me and Jeremy have talked about this fairly recently in our first episode review of The Mandalorian, so I think that was a good movie. I think it pretty well encapsulated what the game was about. It did have a little bit of that political spy thriller thing to it, and I'm a sucker for those movies. I mean, political thrillers are my favorite kind of movies. So it did have.
I lost you guys. I don't even know what the last thing was that you said.
But no, I just think Hitman's probably the for my money, for what I think is the best all around movie that has come from a video game. I think it's managed to stick to the spirit of the character, the spirit of the story, as well as any other video game possibly could. And it's just so that to me is the one that when it comes on, I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll watch it. I don't particularly like the newer one that came out. I thought they were just trying to rehash. It didn't feel like it was a better film, not to me anyway. Some people like it, some people didn't. It didn't do much better critically than Hitman, the original did. But as kind of my second favorite was probably Resident Evil: The Final Chapter. I had been saying for the last probably 7 or 8 movies that they needed to end that series and just be done with it. It was starting to get a little dry. It got to the point where we were all just hanging on, waiting for the end. But when they finally gave us the end was actually pretty good. It was a decent ending for the story. So I mean, the movies were exciting. They were weird. The whole concept was kind of out there, but it was done pretty well overall. So I think Resident Evil: The Final Chapter is kind of like my second favorite. TSS2 says, does Pixel count as a video game film? Well, it counts as a film about video games. We had talked about those a little bit earlier. About video games and the video game culture, and I'll put that back up on the screen. Tron is absolutely one of my favorite films of all time. So is War Games. Cloak and Dagger I remember seeing when I was a kid, and that's a really kind of a nostalgic movie that I like. The Wizard is one that I've always wanted to do a retro movie review on, so maybe I'll get around to that eventually.
Pac-Man was in Tron, if you look at the screen, so it's kind of a twofer.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Pac-Man had a cameo.
Did you know in Cloak and Dagger, they showed the Atari 5200 version, but there was never a 5200 version of the game came out.
Really? I didn't know that.
I think it only came out it could have came out for the 2600, but I know for sure they showed a copy of the 5200 version and it never came out. They were kind of doing product placement all the way back then.
Well, product placement was the name of the game in the 80s. I mean, that's why. I mean, honestly, product placement is why anybody allows their stuff to be put in movies. I mean, it's not an accident that somebody's seen sitting there drinking a can of Pepsi while they're in a scene, spying on this person across the restaurant. It's there for a reason. I mean, these companies want to be on there. What's that?
Companies need to look to the movie producers to get their R brand or whatever in the movie price that they're having to pay the movie production companies to get their product in compared to, say, their competition.
Yeah, they will pay. They'll go to these different places and say, hey, do you want to give us some money for this? And somebody might say no, and then the other company's like, oh, we'll pay. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, we'll pay a little bit more just to keep their stuff out of the movie. It's marketing. That's all it is. I'm actually surprised that so many people know that film Cloak and Dagger. I mean, I'm not overly surprised that Casey knows it, but the fact, I mean, like Garguts, well, I mean, he's in Texas, and they filmed it in Texas. I mean, Garguts also said that Hitman used the same footage from the James Cameron 1970s show Dark Angel with Jessica Alba. That I did not know.
Something that's actually really cool, if we're talking also about, I mean, I would say then, yeah, obviously up on the screen there, like, yeah, Ready Player One is my like all-time favorite movie because that's such a nostalgia and feels trip for me, and I just absolutely love everything in it. And like I said, I can watch it multiple times a day. But Ernest Cline actually just dropped sometime late November. He actually dropped Ready Player 2 book. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that might mean another movie.
I read somewhere the other day that Spielberg's already on top of that shit. So.
Yes.
How much did Ready Player One made? Did they make like a? I know it did awesome. I'm just curious how much they made.
Ready Player One. It's right here. When I'm on the movies about gaming cultures. It made $583 million. Which is by far the most successful film about the video game culture. It's not about one specific video game. It's about the video game culture. The next closest movie to that was Spy Kids 3D Game Over, which came out in 2003 and made $197 million. Nothing else managed to crack 80. War Games made $80 million in 1983, which was huge for the time. Tron did $50 million. Everything else is in like Last Starfighter made $30 million. Everything else is in like the $3 to $14 million range. And these come out at various different years, so it's not just about, it's not that it's adjusted for inflation stuff. It's just that, I mean, some of these came out fairly recently.
Well, I got an idea. Do you think in the future, because with all these new games coming out, and how crazy the graphics it is, and the stories are rich, do you think we will be starting to get way more better video game movies in the future. Like from
I mean, that's kind of like the question you asked earlier, Casey. With same thing, when you mentioned people growing up playing video games, becoming writers and directors for the movies. You're saying, do you think that would make video game movies better? So, I guess you could lump that together with what you just asked about, the graphics and technology and everything behind making video game movies better. I think all of that as a whole will certainly make video game movies better, and they already have over the past couple of years or so now have proven that video game movies have been getting much better.
I think that might have also been the downfall of them too. Is like it may have just been the time they decided to make these. Like, yeah, the graphics probably weren't great, or even the practical and special effects probably weren't like up to par. And I mean, maybe they're cheesy and they're just nostalgic and you don't really care. You just kind of see it and you enjoy it. But also, yeah, the content of the games at the time, like we're talking about Mario, like what are you gonna do with a platformer? A dude runs around eating mushrooms all day and jumping on turtles and shit. You know what I mean? What you think it's like some sort of acid trip movie? And I mean, it may very well be, but there's not a whole lot to play with. So maybe that was kind of like that's the two nails in the coffin for him. Maybe because now it's like, oh well, now we have these big games that are like crazy stories and a lot of rich like content in them, and there's a lot more we can do with it. And again, with the way special effects are, we got more potential. Maybe that's kind of the reason why they just don't really do very well.
Well,
we almost got a Tetris movie a few years ago that was supposed to be a 3-part movie series. Casey mentioned to me, he asked me
not
on
a
my
Tetris
show,
movie.
He asked me a few months ago, he's like, how is that going to work? I'm like, I don't know, but I don't think it was going to be good.
Well, that's my point. Is they're running to the brand rather than to can we make a quality story? Because what the hell are you going to do with Tetris?
No,
Unless they're going to name the
think
tiles and give them personalities, like I don't know, have them running around screaming at each other as they're climbing.
You would think that'd be the first question out of their mouth, and that should be where the conversation ends. Like, Tetris, yes. What are we gonna do for that? You're right. Good meeting, everybody.
Actually, here I have the answer. Tetris would be a good movie. It's not the game; it's the story behind it. Because I mean, from the guy who made it in Russia, I mean,
so
the
kind
story...
of like.
If you want to watch a Tetris movie, just watch the Gaming Historian's documentary on it. It's a 1-hour documentary of the history of Tetris. If you want to watch a Tetris movie, I think his documentary is the closest thing you're going to get.
Exactly, but I mean, I think you can still play off something like that because, I mean, you go through the history, what that game went through before it landed on, like, the NES. And
how many illegal copies actually got made.
Yeah.
Well, this article that I was reading, that I was quoting on earlier, these veteran movie producers' names are Roy Lee and Adrian okay, I'm going to butcher this really bad, and I apologize. Adrian Ashkara, who did the Hitman Agent 47 movie that I'm not particularly fond of. They were talking about what it was going to take to make video game movies better. And, we talked about one of them already, is getting developers involved. The other thing that they talked about, let me find it on here, neither the creators involved. It says something interesting. Marvel became Marvel once they started creating their own movies. I don't entirely agree with that. Marvel was pretty much awesome before they decided to start making any movies, but it depends on how you look at it. The way they do video games movies is, number one, have filmmakers that are passionate about them and know them. Their fans are not just looking at it as a job, also have developers and publishers involved. That's something we've already kind of touched on, is we need people that are actually familiar with the IP to say, wait a minute, I'm okay with you steering away from this or that, but we need to make sure we stay on this certain, at least somewhat on this certain path, because this is what the core of the story is. So that's one thing. And another thing I don't remember bringing up earlier is, let's see, one of them said, I happen to think they're going to be the next comic book movies. We've got 20-something years of video game movies and not one of them's hit yet. Comic book movies, even most of the bad ones, are kind of good. So I don't know if I'm going to go there yet. I haven't been proven right yet, but I feel if you have more filmmakers who are passionate, have a lot of producers, directors, writers that get them in conjunction with video games people working on them, I think you're going to see that. One of these guys is actually making a movie based on the game Deus Ex. And he said that the developers...
Deus Ex?
Yeah, Deus Ex, yeah.
Deus Ex.
And he said the developers are going to be involved with that film from A to Z. So, I mean, I guess we'll have to look out and see what happens with that film when it comes out to see if it really is going to be true to the game. He also says some of the things that we've touched on already. The more you can be respectful to the DNA of the property and have a group of people around you who understand it and share your vision for it, not just trying to make a movie and get a fee, I think you're going to be okay. And this was actually written right before the Assassin's Creed movie came out. He said that he's hoping the upcoming Assassin's Creed movie, which is being produced, will be the first video game movie to really catch on with a wide audience. Didn't work out, sorry. and appeal to veteran fans of the series.
I liked it.
Whatever. That's okay.
Okay, man. Yeah, that's my opinion.
The Duke Nukem movie with was supposed to star John Cena.
That's right.
But he brought up Marvel.
I mean,
yeah, he brings up Marvel in this interview, and one of the things that I've been saying that Marvel has been doing very well from the very beginning is they're paying attention to what is at the core of the characters and what is at the core of the story. And when they do, and let's face it, Marvel hasn't done a whole lot wrong. I mean, so
Exactly.
And on top of that, they haven't done direct adaptations. And I don't want to go on Marvel fanboy because I tend to do that a lot of times, but they tend to just take little bits and pieces of the story and build this newer universe around them without having to be slaves to what we already know from the comic books. And they've managed to do that very well. Now, granted, a lot of it's been casting. Casting has helped out a lot. A lot of it has been finding the right directors. And directors have been huge in this. And so it's worked out for them. It seems to... I don't understand why... movie makers can't figure out the same thing about games, because some of these, like Resident Evil, how many Resident Evil games, and you guys might know this, had been released before we got the first movie?
Oh, Jesus.
They were 2 or 3 games into the series, weren't they?
Probably.
No, weren't they? Didn't they have? For what? When the first one came out?
When the first Resident Evil movie came out.
We might have already had 4 at that point, maybe, because 4 is a really good one. That one came out a while ago.
I remember I was still living in the town actually next to where I live now when I was a kid when the very first Resident Evil movie came out. I think it was 2001 or 2002 when the first one came out.
I want to say 2. I think 2002. Again, that's my little weird quirk. I think
I
right.
know we had at least 3 or 4 games.
I think
because
4.
We had the original trilogy on the PlayStation, and then there was one on the Dreamcast. Wasn't it Code Veronica or one of those? I think on the Dreamcast.
Yeah, Code Veronica.
Yeah.
And then we got the first movie after that.
But wasn't it also on the 64 as well? Like one of them, or like maybe a couple of them on the 64.
I know the first one was. I don't remember if the second and third one were.
I think the second one was on there too, and then it moved on to the GameCube. So, and the GameCube came out in 2001. So it was somewhere right around there, you know.
Resident Evil 4 didn't come out until like 2003 or 2004. I believe.
That's what I'm looking up now. Yeah, Resident Evil was 2002, the movie. Resident Evil.
The first game, didn't the first game come out in the mid-90s?
97, I believe.
Oh, it was long ago. Late 90s. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Resident Evil 4 came out 2005, so right after. So I knew it was close, yeah. So we at least had the 3, and then, that weird, like, Code Veronica game.
So we had a couple of movies to
Because
draw off of.
being the best.
Yeah, so we had a couple of movies to draw off of, and we still had to create this whole new character and this whole weird kind of story dynamic because all we wanted to do was use the name. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Other movies after that,
yeah,
based on the movies on the games.
One thing I kind of wonder about Mila Jovovich now with what I'm about to mention next. I wonder if like now that you've been in 2 video game movies, I'm like, is she kind of like a video game nerd or something? Because she was in Resident Evil and now she's in the new Monster Hunter movie. So I'm like, is that just like a coincidence, or I'm like, is this something that like she's into? I don't know. That's kind of cool.
I think she is.
I don't know if anyone else.
I thought
I don't know of anyone else who's been.
I thought I read somewhere that she is. I don't know if she is a gamer per se, like it's what she does with all of her spare time. But I've heard that she is a big fan of the gaming culture. So maybe this is kind of a labor of love, a bit of a passion for her. Which is, I would imagine it would have to be for her. I would imagine it would have to be for her to come back for 27 sequels of that movie. There would have to be some kind of passion inside her that wants to play this character. So
that's what we're saying. Like, at least someone is putting in the effort because they want to. Like, I'm feeling that maybe that's her whole angle there. Because again, now that we've got both of these series that she's in.
Yeah, but anyway, I want to point out real quick, Derailed News and Podcast in the chat. That's my guy, Drew. Go check out his new shorts. Link to his description is in the description. Link to his channel is in the description below, as always. Go check him out for his new shorts during the week and for the big podcast on Sunday nights, of which I am usually on. So you should watch it for that if no other reason. But he's a pretty cool guy, too. Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy, a friend of the show. But I don't know. Do you guys have any questions in the chat? I mean, Streamlabs is open. Randy Viper has already sent in one. I meant to point that out. I did point that out earlier. I think I forgot to. Also, we have a new subscriber that came up a while back. I didn't get a chance to play. Faderist999 has subscribed to the channel. What's going on? Hope you enjoy what you're seeing. But also, there's been a couple of new people in the chat. I think I pointed out a couple of them already, but let's go down the chat and see who all's been in here. Casey the Rose, Bry Guy were the first in here. TSS, my man. I need to get with TSS to make me a couple of good donation gifts to put up there. Randy Viper making another donation. What's up with him? Rachel Rulin, the new person to the show. I hope you will enjoy it. Leroy X, thanks a lot for coming in. You're new. Bodark was in here at some point. What's going on, Bodark? Cora, of course, is on the call with us. Let's see. Who else has been in here? Gorilla Strong pops in for a little while. I don't know if he's still in here or not. Then obviously Drew. Garguts has been in here. What's going on? My woman Jen came in to say hi. She hasn't dropped any bomb on me yet, but if she's over there watching, she should. Now's about the time to drop a nice $50 donation. I would really appreciate that, honey. And once again, my man Garguts. We have to get Garguts on here one of these days to talk about some movies and shit. I think Garguts would be a fun guy to talk to.
Fuck yeah.
But you wanted to. Rose, you wanted to roll through a couple of quick reviews about a couple of video game movies. So, what's the first one you want to talk about?
Just roll through some of the ones that I have. Of course, Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Touched on these movies actually just a few minutes ago. Mortal Kombat's my favorite movie of all time. I think the first one was handled a lot better than the second one. They followed, of course, the story of the video games back then, specifically the first and the third games in the series. Annihilation was not as good. They crammed, in my opinion, I think they crammed way too many characters into that story. They did the whole animality aspect, which in the games is a finishing thing where your character turns into an animal and mauls the other player. And that was done very badly, in my opinion. There was a green screen segment in the movie which certainly did not age well. It looks very bad, and you could tell it was so bad that you could tell it was a green screen. They didn't even try to hide it. But like I said, those are my that one is my guilty pleasure movie. I think for PG-13, they did pretty well with the movie. The new one is going to be rated R, and it's going to have blood and fatalities, and it's going to be a lot grittier, and it's going to look more like the games, which I can't wait. Next one up, Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li. This movie was absolutely terrible, in my opinion. I remember going to the theater to see this movie. Chun-Li is my favorite character in Street Fighter. She's my go-to when I play the games. I remember going to the theater, and there was maybe 10 people total with me watching that movie the day after the premiere when that movie first came out. Kristen Kruk? Is that how you pronounce her name? She was Chun-Li. She also played in the Smallville TV series.
Well, the Rose, hold on, before you move on. They were just socially distancing. That's why there was only 10 people in there. It wasn't just because
I don't know about 12 or 13 years ago, Casey, but the Street Fighter.
They knew it was coming.
Movie,
if I had a picture of Eugene, I would put it up over you right now.
No.
I feel
You
like
need to put the picture of J-Man with a belt over him.
Oh, I don't want to see that picture anymore. That's not good.
I feel like the Street Fighter Chun-Li movie, they didn't have enough characters in that movie. Like I could only name like 5 characters in that movie. Of course, Chun-Li herself and the villains, Balrog, Vega, Bison, they were in it. Bison's daughter Rose had a cameo in that movie. She was seen coming out of a helicopter, I believe it was. But other than that, like Ryu and Ken weren't even in the movie. Ryu was name dropped at the very end of the movie, and that was it. In that movie as well, there was a lot of scenes that go from day to night. So every time there's a nighttime scene and it switched to a daytime scene, it would mess with your eyes. So I wasn't a very good fan of that scene. I guess the scene layout, in my opinion, I wasn't too crazy about that. That movie just wasn't very good. Of course, Ready Player One, great movie. I also like how they tied that movie into Easter because Wade and Percival. Well, Wade is Percival. Wade and H and the other main characters, they were looking for an Easter egg, and in video games, an Easter egg is a secret that the developers put in the video games that they were, maybe not so much intended to be found, but at the same time, maybe they're intended to be found. So I really like how the angle of that movie was made, and there are just so many references in that movie that you're not going to see them.
The Easter egg was the Easter egg.
It is itself an Easter egg, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, there's so many references in that movie that you're not going to spot them all the first time around.
Why do you think I watch that movie like 5 times a day?
Then you got the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Like I said, it's a movie where if you go into it expecting it, to be like the games, you're going to be disappointed. It's a movie you got to go in.
Hold on. Schleppy's
Since I could never afford either
Schleppy's
one, but I
donating.
only got to play marbles and tic-tac-toe.
Schleppy says, good show, too bad I know nothing about movies or video games since I could never afford either one. I only got to play marbles and tic-tac-toe. Hey, tic-tac-toe's a badass game. If you can win at tic-tac-toe...
Hey, Shelby, what about pickup sticks?
Yeah, your intelligence level is actually pretty high if you can win at tic-tac-toe. But much love, Schleppy. Thanks for supporting the show. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
So the Sonic movie, like I said, it's a movie you got to go into it. You turn your brain off, and I think you'll enjoy it for what it is. The Sonic character is certainly very different from his video game self. Out of Sonic and Robotnik or Eggman, in my opinion, I think Eggman was a lot closer to his character than Sonic was for the most part in that movie. But again, it's something I enjoyed, and the Tails cameo at the end of the movie was awesome. Can't wait to see what direction they go into with the next movie. I liked it for what it was. Then you got Detective Pikachu. It was a decent movie. I liked the mystery aspect of it. I actually really liked the ending, which I won't spoil the ending for anyone who still wants to maybe check that one out. But they used Pokemon in a much different way than they did. From the games, like Pokemon weren't just battle partners. Pokemon were used, and they lived in everyday society, just like people having pets. And the way they made the Pokemon look, for the most part, some of the Pokemon designs are really bad, but a lot of them nailed it, in my opinion. I think that movie was pretty good. I liked the overall story. It had, the story came full circle, and I really liked it. I think Ryan Reynolds did a pretty good Pikachu, and this is coming off of me seeing him as Deadpool. So completely very big contrast in character styles there. I think he did a great job. I'm interested in the next movie, and while I don't own this one, Pixels, mentioned it before with Adam Sandler, and I believe Kevin Hart was in that one. I think that movie was pretty good. That one is another movie that's got a lot of video game references in it that you won't spot the first time around. I like how they got somebody to play the creator of Pac-Man, and they had a scene with Pac-Man and the Pac-Man creator in that movie. The story for that movie was pretty good. I think it could have been better, but that was like the start of the video game culture movies and video game movies, getting better. And then I On the animation side of things, I have the Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge movie that came out earlier this year. It's basically Scorpion's origin story. Tells a story of how, what happened to his family and why he became a vengeful, pretty much, I guess, like a vengeful demon, and he could never die and all this other stuff. And it was, a pretty good retelling of his character. I just don't like how they retconned the actual storyline just to fit Scorpion's character, because it just didn't make sense.
Well, I've always thought you have to be really careful with origin stories anyway, because you're already so attached.
It was a pretty good movie. Some of the fighting scenes in that movie, needed to be better. Like Baraka versus Johnny Cage wasn't even a fight. Johnny Cage was just jumping and running away from Baraka, and Baraka ended up killing himself, chasing Johnny Cage, and
wah wah.
Yeah, that was not very good. But Scorpion and Sub-Zero, they did go at it, because you can't have Mortal Kombat without those two going at it. Raiden, Liu Kang, Sonya Blade, Johnny Cage, they had other characters in the movie. It was a pretty good movie. Certainly a lot better than the first Mortal Kombat animated movie, which was a prequel to the movie that came out in 1994. That one was called Mortal Kombat: The Journey Begins. That movie was all around ugly. The voice acting was terrible. The graphics, the graphical CG design is ugly. The animation is ugly. Everything about that movie was just awful. And when I heard Mortal Kombat was doing another animated movie, I rolled my eyes at it, because I'm like, oh boy, I hope they learned from that first disaster.
I actually kind of like the first Mortal Kombat movie. I thought it was entertaining, but at the time,
that one I think they had just the right amount of characters, and like I said, that one for PG-13 they did really well with it. They did have a few fatalities in it. The only thing that movie was missing was blood, but you can't have everything. But
I guarantee if you had blood, that would have been rated R, because they did have fatalities.
Well, that's why the new one's going to be rated R. It's going to be a lot grittier. It's going to have, much more gruesome finishers and everything in it. So I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, that's all the movies. That's all the movies that I have, and the movies that I've seen. Some of the movies I've seen in the past. Going back to what I said about the Sonic movie, I think if I were to watch the Super Mario Bros. Movie again, and I turned my brain off, because I was 5 years old when I seen that movie, and that movie did not entertain me in the least. And I think if I tried to watch it again now, like going into it the way I went into the Sonic movie, I think I would like it better now than I did 25 years ago.
There's a reason I don't watch that movie. That's one of the movies, like when it came out, I was like, hey, I played that game a lot when I was a kid. It's going to have to be good. So the first time I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. And then I watched it like 3 or 4 times after that, or in the years after that, and I'm like, God, this movie is just not good. What was I thinking when I was, 14 years old, thinking this movie was going to be any good at all? But so I just don't watch it anymore.
Talking about bad movies, how can we not go without mentioning Uwe Boll and the fucking awful disasters of video game movies that he tried making back in the day? Like he made Alone in the Dark, he made Blood Rain, and he made a few other ones, and they were all so bad that he was stripped of his like rights to make video game movies like ever, because he made such terrible disasters.
But like
when he was talking about
the Blood Rain movie.
I actually have a bootleg copy of Blood Rain on DVD that my brother brought back from when he was overseas in the Mideast for the Air Force.
That's how I watched it. My dad got a burned copy. My dad got a burned copy of it from one of his friends, and I'm like, I like Blood Rain. I thought the games were pretty cool. I had the Blood Rain T-shirt from the movie with Rain's tits hanging out on the front of the shirt. I wore that shit to high school. a lot. Was never told to change my shirt. And I watched the movie. I watched the movie. I thought it wasn't very good, but I think the best scene of that movie was when Rain was getting smashed in the cage. Just saying.
You know what's funny is my brother gave me that DVD. He actually got a handful of them when he was overseas, and he gave them all to me. And I swear to God, that DVD has not left its sleeve since he gave it to me.
It's not a very good watch, but I mean, if you ever do decide to watch it, it's not like, I think out of all the Uwe Boll video game movies, that one was probably the best one he did.
Really? That's not saying a whole lot, or that is saying a lot, depending on how you look at it.
No, it's really not.
When he was sitting here talking about Mortal Kombat, and I think probably the only way to do that game / movie any justice would be to make it R-rated, because I mean, when he was saying it, I started my mind started going back to that time. Like, you know what the problem also might have been is that because that game was, I mean, like, what was it, Scorpion's fatality, like on the OG, was like you fucking like rip someone's head with their like spine still attached, like out of their body, and like set it on fire. Or Sub-Zero. Yeah, I'm like,
Scorpion actually had his toasty fatality in the first movie, but Johnny Cage
so I'm like,
it.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying, like, but there's so many things like that. And even now, like, obviously the new game was all these little X-ray things, like where you see someone's like testicles getting smashed into oblivion. You know what I mean? But at the time, I think that was such a big like shock to everyone. It's kind of like when you talk about these old horror movies, like that get banned, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was kind of like, whoa, no one's ever seen that before, and holy shit, like no. Like everyone was harping on video games hard in like the 90s. Like they've like media and shit. That may have also been another reason why they had to be like, all right, we got to tone this down to PG-13, and then which you kind of lose all of your charm and your, I don't want to say charm, but you're ripping someone's spine out of their fucking body is charm.
Well, the fan base grew up, so you were trying to sell your movies to a bunch of 13-year-olds, and you don't.
I know, but
so you had, and that was about the time that Tipper Gore was doing her thing about censorship. So you don't want to make your movies unwatchable. But now that the fan base of video games has grown up, I mean, I'm a casual gamer. I like games. I'm in my 40s. So I mean, now I can handle watching someone getting their spine ripped out through their asshole or whatever, because it's funny to me. because I've spent the last 20-something years playing that kind of stuff in the video game, so it's funny to me. So now I don't have to operate under that constraint of having to make it so PG. Now I can make because do you think you could have made a Deadpool movie the way Ryan Reynolds has made it 20 years ago? No, you absolutely could have. You can make it now because the kids that read those comic books are old enough to appreciate it now.
Yeah, and as I'm saying, it's definitely snowballed into more of a, I guess I could say, acceptable thing, because more people are into it, and they want to see this, and so the voice for it, crying out for it, saying, hey, we want to see this, and I guess with the way things are now, we could do this and do it properly. Maybe that's why. Like, yeah, sure, I'll watch a movie where someone's like spine gets ripped through their ass. I'll just be like, yeah, finish him!
Because
in the theater.
Because it's funny, and exactly it. That's one of the things that I miss most about the theater going experience right now, is that when you hit that moment in the movie where all the real fans are like, finish him all at one time, and screaming it at the theater screen. That's a great thing. But I think that's a
fatality.
Fatality. But I think that's. Go ahead, Casey.
In the new Mortal Kombat movie, are we gonna get the new characters that just being coming out? Like, are we gonna get RoboCop being there?
No, we're not gonna get the guest character.
Oh, you don't want to bring Arnie out of fucking his like retirement home to do fucking Terminator? You know you do. He'll do it too.
Yeah, we gotta get all those characters playing the new Mortal Kombat movie.
Well, the reboot movie is going to be based on the original reboot before Johnny had a kid and before Jax had a daughter, stuff like that.
And just
so
wait, they'll make all the characters girls instead, like they did with Bill and Ted.
Well, that's what they did actually with Mortal Kombat 10. They had the main hero was a girl. And I have no problem with that. I had no problem with that. They did the character pretty decent. But I don't think the Combat Kids, as they're called, I don't think they're going to be in the new movie. At least they're not. They haven't been confirmed yet. But
that could be sequel bait.
Just to speak on one more thing about Mortal Kombat is next week, Ray Rawlings, you're in for an ass whooping that you'll never forget, my friend. You told me I ain't ready, but you, man. You do not understand the extent of what you are in for. Christmas Eve, season's beatings. You're gonna get a primetime ass whooping.
Now you are going to be putting this out live on either Twitch or YouTube, right?
Yes, I'll be live. I'll be going live on Christmas Eve.
Is it going to be on Twitch or YouTube?
I'll be playing a handful of games. You know, and anybody who wants to be on could be on Skype or Discord, or if you guys want to do it.
If you let Casey on, make him be in the bathtub.
Would you not?
He's got to be in his element.
He was already in the car, so I got him in the car the first time.
Well, I'll make sure that I put the link to your Twitch and to your YouTube in the description, so that way we can all go check that out. Because I know there's been some shit talking going on between you and Ray Rawlings about this Mortal Kombat thing. But now seems
Frank in the chat.
He's gonna get his ass
watch
whooped.
Wonder Woman 84.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah, I'm like, hello?
And I'm very envious.
Who?
But that seems like a pretty good place to wrap up this. We've had a fantastic discussion. Here in about 25 minutes or so, you guys can go check out the Jabroni Jabber podcast. He just joined the chat. Actually, Jabroni Awandi's popped in here in the last little bit. Looks like Drew's still in here, so a couple of people have kind of come in. We've had great viewership tonight. I think we were up to like 15 or 16 at one point. A couple of people were cool enough to donate. Thanks a lot, you guys, for being fantastic. A couple of new people that have popped into the chat. It's really great to see all you guys. Also, don't forget that there is a Patreon to help try to financially support the channel. So if you guys want to do that, you're not getting nothing out of it. It's for $5 a month. You get entered into a drawing once a month. The first Thursday of every month, we will spin the wheel, and somebody will get $25 gift card to the theater of their choice. So you guys go see a couple of free movies on me. All you got to do is $5 a month. Sign up in the description below at the Patreon, and you get that. Also, don't forget to go check out some of the other channels that are down there below. We've got Derailed News and Podcast. We've got the Jabroni Jabber Podcast. I think Joe Cronin's links are in there. Ray Rawlings
does a stream too.
Yeah, Ray Rawlings for all the shit that he talks. His Cartoon Kid show with Alex Payne is on there.
Casey's stealing my thunder when it comes to the stream.
I know, right? I'll be updating that eventually soon too, because I want to try to put some more in there that I think you guys will enjoy. Also, I want to thank obviously Cora for coming on here and get into this with us. I know you're not the video game aficionado, but you're a very educated person. I love having you talk to. Give me your closing thoughts, Cora.
I learned a lot tonight, and I have one last random thing. Do you think Jumanji should count on this list? Because it's a movie based on a book of a fictional game that became a video game in one of the movies.
I would consider that personally like one of the ones about the video game culture rather than a video game based movie.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it fits right in there into that niche.
You're right.
About the video game culture, the gaming culture. I mean, yeah, that works for me. That works for me.
Frank, I'm gonna post my channel links in the Discord. This way you can grab them.
That's great.
There's also a movie about Clue. That just reminded me about that.
Well,
you're right. That's a game.
Not to drag this out too much, but that's an interesting question: is do you make board games a part of this category? Because I mean, they made that Battleship movie a couple years ago, which wasn't great. Although
here we go.
It's a bit of a guilty pleasure, but I kind of enjoyed it. I mean, it's fun to watch and just not really take that seriously. But I mean, you got Clue, which is by far one of the best comedies ever made, especially if it's fantastic.
Very good movie.
But
Tim Curry, man.
Yeah,
Very good movie.
Tim Curry can do no wrong. He could do no wrong for about 15 or 20 years. But anyway, Jeremy, what are some of your closing thoughts on the video game film industry?
Like I said, I hope we're on the upward climb here. So, again, with the way things, with what we put into the Hollywood machine now, I guess is what we can call it, with, what we can do with movies. Hopefully we're on the upward trend, and I'm excited to see some more.
The nice thing about the MCU to me is that I think it's given people a template as to how to take other mediums and turn them into decent movies. So hopefully people are looking at guys like Kevin Feige and saying, what is he doing to take these stories and to... Even if you are just taking, like I said earlier, the bits and pieces and crafting this new story around them, how can we do that? And I think that hopefully that they will start to look at him and everything he's done, and that Ike Perlmutter and some of the other people that have done associated with Disney and Marvel, and maybe start to apply a lot of that to the video game movie niche. Because I think it can only help. I think it can only help to maybe look at some of those lessons. But now, Casey is Raw. Give me some of your closing thoughts, sir.
Well, I kind of agree with him. I do think it's gonna go on an upward tick because I kind of see it like how the comic book movies. Yeah, I love Batman back in the day, but to me, 89 Batman's the best one until
It is really
they
good.
had until the Nolan Batmans. But you know, between Batman Returns and was it Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, that I still, when I was a child, I thought they were awesome, but now they are garbage. But but since Marvel, you know, been pumping these movies out and knows how to do it, I'm kind of hoping like a brand like Nintendo, because they got so much franchise behind them, that they could do what Marvel did. Just, I mean, I think they could do that.
Yeah,
But with all these video games coming in, with rich stories, I think we're gonna see way better movies.
We could really bring these worlds to life. I think I know what you're saying. That's what's
Yeah.
exciting to me.
Actually, Frank, can I mention one more thing?
Well, go ahead. I was going to go to you next anyway for your final thoughts, so bring it.
Segue.
Yeah, I definitely think, you know, as long as we have passionate people that are going to do, that want to work on these video game movies, you know, people who are teenagers now who will grow up into their 20s and 30s and want to make video game movies. I don't see video games going away like anytime soon, and I think as time goes on, I think they can only get better as long as we have the people passionate enough to do it. And I wanted to mention this real quick. 2022 is going to be a pretty big year for Sonic the Hedgehog. Not only are we getting the Sonic 2 movie, but Netflix actually tweeted last week during the Video Game Awards that there's going to be a 3D animated Sonic cartoon series. It's going to premiere on Netflix in 2022 as well. They didn't give really any information yet, but it's going to be the sixth Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon that we have gotten. So I'm interested in, you know what, I know I'm in my 30s now, but I still love me a good cartoon every once in a while.
I'm not going to lie.
So
one of the best things about having
looking forward to that.
Yeah, one of the best things about having Disney Plus to me is I get to go back and watch things like Darkwing Duck and DuckTales and things like that in my free time. So,
Love
so
that stuff.
I'm in my
I've been doing that
mid-40s.
too.
I'm in my 40s. I still love watching the cartoons every now and again.
And Looney Tunes. I love Looney Tunes still.
Oh, yes. But yeah, I'm going to go live on Twitch in probably about a half an hour after the show is over. Also, my Extra Life fundraiser is still going on. I have 2 more weeks to accept donations. If anyone is willing to, anyone who is willing to share it or donate, even the littlest amount, $1 goes a long way. I posted that as well in the Discord, Frank, if you want to share it around, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll go ahead and send me that link too, and I'll put that in the description. Also,
Yeah.
you're coming really close to your goal for the year, right? How close are you to that goal?
Yeah, Jesse J was the last one to donate. He donated the $30 2 weeks ago, or almost 2 weeks ago now. You had mentioned something about Drew won a gift card or whatever, and you didn't know if he was going to accept it or not. So.
I already talked to him. He said he's gonna put that $25 towards your cause. I just have to go do that.
Okay.
Awesome.
You know, not to bring it up like to sound like I'm desperate for the donations, but.
Well, I am. I want you to get to that goal.
I would-
You were coming very, very
would
close to your
love-
goal, and I
I would
really
love
want to
to-
see you hit it before the end of the year. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to hit it. I
It's
got
for a
2
good
more
cause.
weeks. I got 2 more weeks. It's to help the kids in the Children's Specialized Hospital. They treat kids with cancer and kids that have occupational needs, kids with mental disorders, trauma victims like from car accidents and stuff like that, wheelchair kids and stuff like that. And your donations are tax deductible, so you can claim it on your income tax for those of you who file taxes. I did my charity stream earlier this year, last month, in fact, when I had Casey on for a little while. Uploading parts of that live stream here and there. working on cutting the videos and whatnot, because that was a 27-hour live stream in 2 days. So I have a lot of working on that to do to upload as much of that as I wanted to. So yeah, I would greatly appreciate it. Any donation is welcome from the United States of Canada. Again, tax deductible if you donate. If you give your email address and your name, you'll get an email. You'll save that email, and when it comes tax time, you'll put that into your income tax, and you can claim it. So, if you can't donate, I understand. 2020 has been a rough year on a lot of people, but if you could just share the link and tell other people about it, I'd greatly appreciate that as well.
I will absolutely put the link in the description below, and if any of you guys want to go through a couple bucks at it, we would greatly appreciate you guys helping out that great cause. But I want
next week I'm going to be throwing that around. I know Jesse asked me if I would do one more stream before the year is over, and I like to stream on Christmas Eve. Hang out, chat with people on Christmas Eve, and that's why Ray Rawlings challenged me to Mortal Kombat, and he's going to learn. He's going to learn quite well that you don't mess with me when it comes to Mortal Kombat. I'm going to be playing other games, and if there's other people that want, you guys want to come on Discord or Skype, whichever way, I don't have to make it a full-blown video game stream. We could just hang out and shoot the shit like we're doing right now.
Hey, just talk video games. It is a big community of people who are really, really intelligent on the topic of video games, and not just the playing, but the industry itself. I mean, that whole thing has gotten big.
Yeah, buddy.
A lot of guys like Chaos and some other guys. I mean, Chaos is the only gamer that I watch a lot that really gets into like the development and all that, the good and bad things about gaming. But I mean, that's becoming a big thing on YouTube. So you guys could definitely go check out Rose and get into some conversations like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm not the most entertaining person out there, but you know what? When I'm on, putting out some content, I try. There's so much negativity in the world that if I could at least make somebody smile out there, then I feel like I've done something good with my content.
Absolutely.
It might make someone's day, man. You never know.
You never know. I mean, every little bit helps, especially, like you said, after this year. It's been a tough one. But I want to thank everybody for coming and checking out the stream. I want to thank Cora. I want to thank Jeremy. I want to thank Casey as Raw. And I want to thank The Rose Gaming for being on here. We had a great conversation tonight. One of the best live stream viewerships we've had. I think we were up to 15 or 16 at some point. We're holding strong at 13 right now. A couple of new viewers. Fantastic. And that's all because of some of these people that were on the call with me tonight. I want to thank you guys for being so amazing. And here, I'll give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek, since there's a lot of you here, about what's coming next week. That's what we're going to be doing next